Good afternoon and welcome to my presentation. Today I'd like to talk about domestic violence. My name is Christopher Smith. Okay, my talk will be in 5 parts. First, I will give a definition. After that, some statistics. Then causes, followed by solutions. And finally, an evaluation or conclusion. Okay, I'll begin by looking at the definition of domestic violence. It is any incident of threatening behaviour, violence or abuse between adults who are or who have been intimate partners or family members, regardless of gender or sexuality. What is interesting is abuse is psychological, physical, sexual, financial, or emotional. Now I'd like to turn to some statistics. 1.3 million people were abused in the UK last year. As I'm sure you're aware, the majority, 85%, are women, and usually between the ages of 16 and 24. It is important to note that 1 in 3 women in the world have experienced domestic violence. Unfortunately, 2 women are murdered each week, and we'll come back to this point later. Another interesting statistic is that actually 835,000 men were abused by women in the UK last year. And sadly, 750,000 children experienced domestic violence in their family. Okay, now let's look at this chart. Looking at the chart, you can see that it represents women with children and the main reason for seeking assistance with the social services in the UK. Nearly 50% of assistance was based on domestic or family violence. This is a very significant point compared to the basic needs of accommodation and financial services. Right, so what are the causes for domestic violence? Firstly, jealousy and possessiveness. Domestic services. This is the thought that the partner should be doing domestic chores, and if these are not done, this can create violence. Obviously, sex and not providing sex can create violence. Blame. Sometimes the abuser blames the victim, saying it's their fault that I have to hit you because you're not meeting my standards of what I think is a good relationship. Denial. The abuser can say that I don't hit the victim, or that the violence was only minimal. It was just a slap. I think it is important to notice that there is a possibility that the abuser was abused as a child. Okay, why would someone decide to stay with a man or a woman that beats them? Well, I think we can all agree, and it is commonly known, that love is crazy. Perhaps the victim is afraid to leave, especially with women, that this could create more violence, or the consequences could be more serious. Obviously, finances. Weakness. Years of psychological abuse can create weakness and no confidence in yourself, or to have the confidence to leave. Perhaps the victim thinks it's their fault that the person hits them. As mentioned earlier, murder is a significant point. There is a statistic that states that many of the relationships that have ended from domestic violence, that afterwards the abuser has murdered the victim. Some victims can bear the violence. And finally, he or she always says that they're sorry. Right, turning to the solutions, there is a way out, and here are 4 ideas. First, there are support groups in most countries that recognise domestic violence. There's the family, turning to your family. There's also creating a plan, a well-executed, organised plan of generating money, finding work, finding somewhere else to live will help the transition from separating. And finally, this is quite an important point, is that abuse only seems to work in secret. So by telling everyone, neighbours, police, shop assistants, family, absolutely anyone, you are bringing the problem out from the darkness. There is hope. In fact, many governments, societies and charities now recognise domestic violence, and they are campaigning, offering leaflets and advertising to help victims. In fact, this year on February the 14th, there was an uprising of women all across the world. This was called 1 Billion Rising, where over 1 billion women all danced in the streets to rise up against violence towards women and more equal rights. This could be seen as a revolution. Okay, finally, to sum up, I have given a definition, provided statistics, reasons and solutions to domestic abuse. It seems to me that 1 in 3 women being abused worldwide is a serious problem. I feel and believe that there is a need for more group and support networks throughout the world, in every country, in every community. There is also a need for more government campaigns and more awareness programs. I think that abuse only thrives in silence, and that there should be more opportunities for victims to talk about it without any need of discrimination. Thank you. Here is my bibliography. Are there any questions?